Tu Diep is always strong, but no one can avoid weak moments. One day she suddenly fainted at James' house. James' father found out and immediately took her to the hospital. The news quickly reached Father James. James's reaction. James is studying, with lawyers and some partners, about the lawsuit involving John. Then received the phone. When hearing the news that Tu Diep had to be hospitalized, he immediately dropped everything, drove straight to the hospital in a state of confusion. Even though I decided to leave Tu Diep, to protect her from dangerous plots, but when I knew she was in trouble, James can't stand still. He rushed into the emergency room, saw her lying on the hospital bed with a pale face. My heart was broken. When the doctor came out, James hurriedly asked her how she was. The doctor looked at James thoughtfully and said, she was severely debilitated, signs of exhaustion from overwork, and prolonged stress. Besides, the test results showed that she had a small tumor in her stomach. We need to do more tests to determine whether the tumor is benign or malignant. James was stunned. I feel like I've been too careless because of worrying about plans and fighting with John. He left her alone to face the pressure. He took her cold hand and whispered softly, "You were wrong, you shouldn't have left me alone." Father James's reaction. When Father James, Mr. Tran knew the news but said nothing. Just quietly go to the hospital. Although he did not support the relationship between James and Tu Diep before, but right now he only cares about her health. Entering the hospital room, he saw a goat sitting by the bed. Worried eyes. Father James sighed and said, "I used to think she wasn't strong enough to stand by you, but maybe I was wrong." James looked up at his father, a little surprised. Father James continued slowly, "If it is so important to you, then protect it. Don't let yourself regret." Father's words made James come to his senses. He held Tu Diep tightly, decided from now on will not let her get hurt or tired of being alone. While waiting for test results, James secretly sought out the best doctors, even contact foreign hospitals, to prepare the best plan for her. "I know that no matter what the outcome is, I will be there for you." She came along. However, what James did not expect was that, while he was trying to protect Tu Diep, another plot is brewing against him. Conspiracy in the dark. While James worries about Tu Diep, someone took advantage of his moment of carelessness to strike. John becomes James' enemy after being exposed for drug trafficking, still not giving up revenge. We know that James is focusing all his attention on Tu Diep, so this is the perfect time to take action. John contacted someone in the hospital, a doctor he bribed in advance. He asked this person to fake Tu Diep's test results, made her believe she had a terminal illness. His plan was simple: push Tu Diep into despair, causing her to leave James forever. The traitorous doctor received instructions: quietly edit test results in advance when giving to James. And when James received the paper, his heart almost stopped beating. Malignant tumors require immediate treatment. The old man took a step back, his hand clutching the paper tightly. No way. Shocking truth. When Tu Diep woke up, she saw James sitting next to her. His eyes were red and his face was full of pain. She worriedly asked what was wrong. James could not hide the truth. He held her hand tightly, his voice trembling. "The doctor said I have cancer." Tu Diep was speechless. She couldn't believe her ears. She is too young, she is not ready to face death. She wants to live with James. Want a family, want to see the future. But all those dreams suddenly disappeared. See the despair in Tu Diep's eyes. James felt like someone was squeezing his heart. He hugged her tightly, trying to control the pain. "I won't let you suffer alone. We will get through this together." But Tu Diep did not want to be a burden to James. She started thinking about leaving him. Mr. Tran's suspicion. Although everyone believed the test results, James' Father James felt something was wrong again. Is a seasoned businessman. He understood that this world was full of dark conspiracies. He quietly met privately with the doctor treating Tu Diep. Request a recheck of all test results. He also secretly sent someone to investigate this hospital. Check for any unusual signs. And finally, the terrible truth is revealed. Investigating doctor found there's a discrepancy in Tu Diep's test results. Initial results indicate that the tumor is benign, but someone changed it to turn into malignant shit. This means that someone deliberately deceived James, and Tu Diep pushed them into despair. When he heard the news, James' father immediately called James. The truth is revealed. James rushed into father's office, his face still in pain. He did not have time to say anything. Then Father James pushed the investigative documents in front of him. "Look, son, someone is playing tricks." James took the file and read it line by line. The more he read, the tighter his hand clenched. Anger flared in his eyes. Who dares to do this to the leaves? He gritted his teeth and his voice was full of murderous intent. Father James nodded. "I think so too. But we need solid evidence to expose him." James didn't wait another second. He immediately called his lawyer and investigation team. If John dares to play this dirty trick, he will pay the price. Tu Diep discovers the truth. While James was busy investigating, Tu Diep has quietly made a decision. She didn't want James to be tied down to a sick person like her. So she quietly wrote a farewell letter, left on the table and left the hospital. But when she walked out the door, she overheard a conversation between a doctor and a nurse. Luckily, Father James asked for a recheck. Otherwise, Ms. Tu Diep will believe that she really has cancer. Right, who can be so cruel? Fake test results like that. Tu Diep was stunned. She couldn't believe her ears. "You don't have cancer." Her whole body shook with anger and terror. Who did this and why? She immediately returned to the hospital room, only to see James standing there. His eyes blazed with anger. When he saw her, he walked over and hugged her tightly. "You know it all." Tu Diep also squeezed his hand. Now they have a common enemy, and this time they won't let him get away. The war begins. When John received the news that Tu Diep knew the truth, he knew he had failed, but he did not accept that. John decided to play one last bet. Direct attack on James' company. Forced him to kneel before him. James and Tu Diep had no other choice. Besides counterattack. This time there will be no more concessions. The war between James and John officially entered the most tense period. John counterattacks James' company in trouble. James knows. I failed to separate James and Tu Diep, but he did not give up. If you can't hit the spirit, He will attack James' career head-on. The next morning, while James was studying with the shareholders on company expansion plans, the secretary suddenly ran in with a pale face. James is in big trouble. Our company's stock is being sold off. Value plummeted. James was startled and immediately turned on the computer. On screen, your company's stock chart is plummeting. Negative news flooded the media. James' company suspected of financial fraud. CEO James under investigation for tax evasion. Many investors withdraw capital, a sign of impending collapse. James clenched his fists. This was clearly a targeted attack. Just then, an anonymous call came to his phone. James pressed the button to hear John's familiar voice ring out. James, your company is in big trouble. How are you doing? Do you want to ask me for help? James coldly replied, Is it you? John laughed. I just help you realize the truth. The business world is a battlefield if you are not strong enough. You will be crushed. You think I will give up? You can try. But don't forget, investors don't have much patience. When your company goes bankrupt, I will be waiting to collect its remains. Call ended. James looked at the screen, his eyes filled with anger. Tu Diep and James face crisis. Immediately after the call, James immediately assembled a team of 5 financial advisors and lawyers. He ordered an investigation. See who is behind the fake news. At the same time, he asked Tu Diep, use her connections with the media to find a way to refute the rumors. Tu Diep did not hesitate. She knew it was time for her to fight alongside James. She immediately contacted the reporters she knew to control negative information. She also met with some investors. James' company is not a financial fraud, but the situation is getting more and more tense. Some important partners are starting to hesitate to cooperate. Some employees panicked and intended to quit. If this situation continues, the company will really collapse. A major shareholder spoke anxiously at the emergency meeting. James said nothing. He just silently clenched his hand. Tu Diep looked at him, then took his hand and said softly, We will not lose. James looked into her determined eyes. Yes, I can't fall now. I have to fight back. Decisive step. After many days of investigation, James finally found the proof. John bribed some reporters to spread fake news. At the same time, he colluded with some officials to falsify documents. Tax evasion charges. James immediately asked a lawyer to plead not guilty. Defamation and false information. At the same time, he held a big press conference. Publish all evidence to the media. A series of newspapers began to report the news. The truth about crime is revealed. John accused of spreading fake news. James' company stock rebounds strongly. When John realized his plans were ruined, he was so angry that he smashed everything in the office. But the story is not over yet. James didn't stop at suing John. He also secretly cooperated with some underground forces. Dig into his business, and then a shocking truth was revealed. John actually is running a transnational money laundering ring. When the police raided John's company headquarters, he just realized that he had lost completely. Arrested in the office, John only had time to scream. James Dow will not let this go. James stood in front of the office door. watched John being escorted away by the police. He let out a long breath and held to Diep's hand tightly. Finally, it's over.